What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to My RP Life. I am your host, Juan. Before we get this in, I just want to say subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, and you can also join my Facebook group page, My RP Life Family and Friends Group. I am the admin there, and my beautiful Diva Deb is the head admin also. She's the one who runs it. Shout out to her, my beautiful Diva Deb. Mwah, love you, baby. And subscribe to me on Spotify, Podcast, iPod, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. I deeply appreciate all that love and support from everyone around the world. And I have a special guest on, my brother from another mother, the champ, Victor, the Victorious. And this is my brother from another mother. So say what's up, champ.
What's up, my brother? Glad to have my face in the place, and as you said, the champ is here.
Right. Okay, so my brother, I have a few questions for you. And question number one, like I say to everyone who comes on here on my podcast, how did you lose your sight? And explain that so people can get to know you more. And just let's start from there. Like, just let them know that you was, you lost how you lost your sight and stuff like that.
All right, my brother, not a problem. But my story is a little different in a sense because,
right.
Well, it started, I was 13 and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Right.
And at that age, I was petrified. I'm like, how in the hell did I get this thing? Is it going to kill me? Is there a cure? I'm like, what the heck is going on? The only thing I knew at that time is that I was going to have to take insulin shots.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got to know about the disease, there were 3 things that I learned that I didn't ever want to experience.
Right.
I never wanted to have an amputation.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to lose my kidneys, and I never wanted to be blind.
Mm-hmm.
And I battled diabetes for 24 years.
Mm.
And it has beat me up. It has beat me up, bro, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess around 1997 is when I first started seeing little changes in my vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I started wearing eyeglasses. And I wore eyeglasses for about another 10 to 13 years. And it was around 2011. My vision really started to change at that time. It was shortly after the earthquake we had here in August. And I remember going to the doctor's office, an eye doctor's appointment actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they injected a dye in my eyes, and the doctor said at the time that I had a lot of bleeding going on, and I was diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy. But that wasn't new to me because I was told that previously.
Right.
And in 2009, I also started dialysis.
Mm.
And of course, that means going to a clinic 3 times a week. You get the blood pulled out of you, clean, returned to you. That's about a 3.5 hour to 5 hour process, depending on how sick you are. Right. And I had the blessing of living close to my center where I could walk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rare. So I would get up on my treatment days, I'd walk, get back, no problem. But one October day, it was a beautiful sunny day. It's like any other day. I go into my treatment, had no problems. They check your blood pressure before you get off the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so they checked it and it turned out to be perfect. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm feeling good. Getting ready to, grab my gear and go.
Right.
And I tell you, bro, when I was walking towards the waiting room that day, all of a sudden, bam, I went from full sight to no sight.
Wow.
It was just like somebody turned the lights out, bro. And the first thing I said was, can somebody help me? I can't see anything.
Right.
And it was this big like gas throughout the entire center.
Wow.
And they rushed me out to the waiting room, and they was like, well, what happened? And I'm like, well, I can't see anything. And this has happened previously to me, and I would go home, I'd rest, drink some fluids, and it would come back. So
right.
I'm thinking, okay, if I go home and I do that, it'll come back. So I go home and I rest, and when I woke up, bro, sat on my side of the bed, opened my eyes, like, wait a minute, my eyes are wide open and I can't see anything.
Wow.
And I was like, oh snap, what the hell happened?
Right.
And ironically, the next day, I was set to go and see an eye doctor. So I get up the next day, my cousin, who's an assistant who works with, sickly people, she took me up there and they did these eye tests. Couldn't find anything, so they sent me home. Only to call me at home and tell me to come back up to the hospital, where they kept me for a week and they ran all kinds of tests on. They did MRIs, they did CT scans, they did blood tests, spinal taps. Couldn't find anything.
Wow.
So they pretty much let me go after a week and say, okay, good luck. Sorry about your sight.
Wow.
So, my mom actually went to a drugstore or a supply store and bought me my first cane, and it was like a candy cane. It had a curved handle.
Right.
And so that's how I got around for the first, I would say, 4 or 5 years. I didn't know of any resources. I didn't know anybody who was blind or visually impaired. So I was on an island by myself.
Right.
And it wasn't until maybe 2013, 2014, I finally got a actual white cane from the Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind here. My mom, bless her heart, she already knew these little basic skills of how to lead me and show me how to use the cane. So
right.
I pretty much leaned on her.
Right.
And in 2015, I finally got an answer. I saw a specialist in Georgetown here, and they said I had a condition called, you ready for this?
Yeah.
It's called metabolic optic nerve neuropathy. And basically what they said was, on the day I lost my sight, there was a sudden catastrophic loss of blood to the optic nerve in the back of the brain. And of course, when the optic nerve loses blood, it dies.
Yeah. And
it does not regrow, it does not regenerate. So any loss is permanent. And so they weren't dependent on that.
Yeah.
And so they did this test and checked to see if there was any blood flowing. And they said, well, typically in a normal person, the optic nerve appears pink. Mine, they said, was as white as a brand new dress shirt. It was like a bright white.
Wow. I'm
like, okay, thanks for shooting any hopes I had of getting my sight back. But, I hit rock bottom at that point. I'm like, okay, because again, I wasn't expecting this. I went from having sight to wearing glasses, and then at some points it was a visual impairment where it looked like I was looking through broken glass. But after a period of time, the rest of my eyesight would appear to be normal again. And then to just lose it without preparation, without anything, it just boggled my brain.
Yeah.
And
because it hit you all at once.
On this island, didn't know anybody, didn't know how I was going to cope. I was stuck in a rut. And I was fortunate to talk to a high school friend who said, you need to connect with people on Facebook. So I joined 2 groups on Facebook, one, and let's just say it was the smartest move I ever did on Facebook.
Right. I
have met so many interesting, awesome people, not only in the United States, but around the world, including yourself.
Right.
And like my family of best friends, they all happen to be blind and visually impaired.
Right.
It's extraordinary.
Right.
And even in 2019, I was having these severe headaches. Didn't know why. So I go to the hospital. They Then they tagged me with glaucoma. They said I had 2 cataracts. One was a massive cataract in the right eye. They said it was attached to the lens. They said, well, we're not going to bother that because the cataract might break and then we have to take the lens out. That's really going to mess your eye up. And then there's a smaller one and the left one. And, it's just a whole bunch of who shot John.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's good to know. But if y'all are not going to help me, why are you wasting my time telling me this? Just give me my eye drops so I can go on and live my life. You know?
Exactly. Yep.
It's a devastating blow to anybody who just lose it when you're not expecting it. But God blessed me with family who loved and supported me. He blessed me with friends who support me and help me understand and deal with this thing, because it's a lot to deal with, as you know.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, man, because even with me, it's like I say, it's still a struggle for me because I'm still newly blind. And it's only been like a year, I think about a year and a few months, probably like a year and 6, probably more than that. But yeah, every day is a struggle for me too. Like when I lost my sight, it was real rough, but I tried my best not to mope about it or to be all upset about it. I tried my best to take what I've learned and the support that I already had from the community and implemented that into my life. And it's still a struggle today, being totally blind, because I'm still new at it, but I just try my best to keep moving on, keep moving forward and picking myself up. So I get it, And what I was gonna ask you, so you are also, even though you're totally blind now, it's about 10 years now, right?
It'll be 10 years in October.
And
it's been a life-changing decade, very life-changing.
Yeah.
You lose your independence, your sense of independence, because in 2011, I just renewed my driver's license. Just renewed it in March.
Right.
And can you imagine having a totally legit driver's license for 8 years and you can't use it?
Yeah.
That sucked. And then, when I turn 40, I have to go back to the DMV and I have to surrender it because I can't see.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a shot to your, to your ego, your independence and everything.
Right.
Even being able to go out and do things. I was an avid writer. I love writing and typing on the computer. Can't really do that now.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of adaptations and learning how to do things differently.
Right. So
blindness is indeed change after change after change.
Now, I got a question. Okay, so before we get into the other ones that I was going to ask you. Okay, so when you first lost your sight, so say for example, a year in, like, did you feel so down and so depressed that at one point you felt like just giving up?
At one point, losing my sight, because I was still grappling with diabetes at the time and dialysis. So it was like another blow. And I'm like, okay, Victor, now you're 33, you're blind, you're diabetic, you're on dialysis, your blood sugars and blood pressures are so high, you can't even get a number on the machines. Your stomach is sick every day. It's like, what's the purpose? I don't want to be living like this every day.
Right.
I'm like, come on, this is, put me in the diabetic coma and just get me out of this misery.
Right.
Because at that point, it's like, okay, what else is going to happen?
It started being overwhelming for you, and at one point in your life, you felt like giving up, right?
I did, but one thing that I've learned, especially over the last 10 years, is that, of course, my astrological signs are Aries, and we're known to be very stubborn, very headstrong, but we're resilient and we thrive on positivity.
Right.
And we cling to those things that are positive. And then my mom, she's a Taurus, so of course they're stubborn and hard-headed and grounded, and they don't like a lot of change.
Yeah.
And my sire, well, he was a Sagittarius, and that's the fire sign, and they pretty much mimic in Aries. And then my last name, anybody with my last name, they're like, okay, he's stubborn, you know. So when I'm built on that,
right,
and that's in my genes and how I am, giving up was not an option.
Right.
You know, I've been fighting even before I was born, from my mom having to go on bed rest and not having to do much of anything, just resting just for me to survive.
Right.
And, you know, having to grow up as a little boy and can't run with the other kids because I had a severe case of asthma, to battling diabetes and the changes it's put me through. I mean, dude,
yeah,
I've been fighting my whole life, and that's why I love the name Vector, because it means winner, it means champ, it means conqueror, and it's basically who and what I am.
Right.
So I have to fight and I have to win.
Right.
And again, when you hit that rock bottom, it's like, okay, I got tired of things just beating up on me. Like, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people in our community and people in general don't like being told what they can't do.
Right.
You can't do this. You can't do that. And I got sick of it.
Right.
It's like, okay, blindness comes along. Okay, you can't drive. You can't write anymore. You can't go out on your own. It's like, okay, well, what am I going to do to prove you wrong? So, okay, I can't drive, but I have friends who drive. I have Uber. They're working on self-driving cars. I hope one day I'll be able to drive a car again. If I can't write on pen and paper, well, I can write on a computer one day if I learn the skills. I have 2 smartphones that use talk over and talk to text, and so I can speak or type what I'm going to say now.
Right.
So it's just a matter of finding a way to get things done.
Yeah, it takes time.
And
to
just
get
knowing
things.
that you can, you will.
Right. It takes time to get around all of that, you know?
Right.
Like, eventually I know, you know, because you're a smart, educated brother, and I know, like, how do I say this? Like, eventually you'll get to it when it comes time, and it's there for you, like learning how to use a computer and all this stuff, because all that takes money too, because computers and laptops, ain't none of that stuff cheap, you know?
I know, right?
Heck yeah. And even if you try to get like, the only free stuff is like NVDA, and they even ask you if you want to get the full, like, I guess the full accessory, the full version, and they ask you if you want to pay like $10 or whatever, even though it's free, you know. But but you know, and I know it's hard because, you know, financially to get these things. But going on to my next question is, you are also a kidney and pancreas transplant survivor too, so tell them that story and what you went through in the hospital after dialysis and everything, and what was that process, and how what you went through and stuff like that. So let them know that story from the beginning.
Yeah, well, as I said, I was diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 13. And again, when I was educated, they tell you within 10 to 15 years, you're likely to go blind, and you're likely to lose your kidney function, and you're likely to lose a limb, you know, a hand, a foot, or something. So it started in 2009, actually, and my kidneys failed in January. Oh, way to start off the new year, right?
Right.
So I'm on dialysis now. Started at February 17th of 2009. And my dad, bless his heart, was alive at the time. He also was on dialysis. I'm actually the 4th member of my family to undergo dialysis. My dad was not diabetic, though. He lost his kidney function due to high potassium levels. But when I came to that decision, if I wanted to start dialysis, it was a no-brainer because I didn't want to die. I didn't want to say that diabetes killed me and I'd be another statistic. So
right.
I remember waking up from that surgery one because it was my first ever surgery, and I woke up and I'm in the dialysis portion of the hospital, and I feel this pain, and I happen to look at my side, and then they put a catheter in your chest.
Right.
When you first start dialysis, as you heard in Andrew's story. And so I'm looking at this tubing, it's 2 lines of blood, and it's this big machine, huge machine. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, is this the rest of my life? Is this it? And
right.
I'm like, it can't end like this. It can't end like this. So I think about a month or so beginning dialysis, my nephrologist came to me and he said, have you considered a kidney pancreas transplant? I said, well, I thought about it. Kidney, I'm like, I could get a pancreas too. Because I looked this up when I was 13, and pancreas transplants back then in the early 90s were not so common.
Right.
And just to get a pancreas back then was $46,000. I don't have that kind of money laying around.
Wow.
And I did my research, and it was explained to me that if you are a type 1 diabetic, which I was, and you have kidney failure, it's beneficial to get both organs, because when you get the pancreas on top of the kidney, now your blood sugars are back to normal. Yep. And it protects that kidney, whereas if you are diabetic and you just get the kidney, well, that doesn't take care of the diabetes, and then ultimately it's going to attack that kidney, and you're right back where you started. Right. So I'm like, okay, no brainer. I'm down. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But with the insurance company that I had, they contracted with the University of Chicago. I'm like, okay. Well, you guys got to help me get there. So I had to do a number of tests. I had to see an endocrinologist. I had to go through a psychological exam. Like, really show them, because you have to be sick, like really sick, to be considered for this kind of surgery. Right. And so in 2010, I flew out to Chicago to meet with the transplant team. So I'm, first day I'm set to go in there and meet with the team. I sit through a class, and the class is over. We're getting ready to go into the exam rooms and talk to the doctors, and I get sick. Oh, wow. Really sick. Wow. And I go from the exam rooms to the emergency room, and they admit me in the intensive care unit. So here I am in Chicago, which is supposed to be a 3-day stay. Now I'm in the ICU. I'm like, okay, how long am I going to be here? And
when that happened, were you was visually impaired, or were you still sighted?
No, I had total sight. I was totally sighted at this time.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
My companion with me at the time, I'm like, I don't know how long I'll be here because I'm sick. Well, they come in the next day. They say, well, your insurance company doesn't want you to be here. So they packed me up They sent me home. I flew home from the ICU to the airport back to DC.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, thanks, guys. But that would be the last time I would go to Chicago because, my job called me in 2013, said, we can't carry you on our insurance anymore. We have to let you go.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, now I lose that opportunity. Now what? Wow. So in 2014, my older brother, who was a Marine, served 4 years, he was a type 1 diabetic. And he also was on dialysis, but he chose a different mode called peritoneal dialysis, which he does himself at home. And so he got called for his transplant to take place in the University of Iowa, which is where Andrew got his.
Right.
And so now I'm in a jealous rage run. I'm like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me, wait, I was diabetic before my brother was. I started dialysis before he did, so how on earth did he get his organs before I did? Like, what the heck?
Right.
And at this point, I'm blind. I'm like, come on, really? Like, this isn't fair.
Right.
And I remember because the same day he had his surgery, I had to go to dialysis.
Right.
And I got home, I really wasn't feeling well, and my mom was like, you can't worry about that, just say you're next in line.
Mm-hmm. Now,
my brother was transplanted on May 7th of 2014, so his anniversary is in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Actually, I think in the next 4 weeks, 4 weeks from today, to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
So, in June of 2014, I go to my social worker at the dialysis center. I say, I've got to get back on that list. Give me a list of hospitals that offer a kidney pancreas transplant. Mm-hmm. And so she's reading the list to me, and the first one she mentions is Georgetown University Hospital. I said, stop. That's where I want to go. Mm-hmm. So she gives me the contact information. My mom takes me up there. I get evaluated in June. July 9th, I get a letter at the dialysis center. I get a call. I was approved. So now I'm on the active waiting list. Now the countdown is on.
Right.
And the time that I was listed with the University of Chicago, which was about 1.5 years, was added on to the waiting time that I was going to gain while waiting for my transplant here at Georgetown. So that actually moved me up the waiting list. Huh. I'm like, okay, that's great.
Heck yeah.
So I'm getting closer to the top.
Right.
So early August now, it's August the 4th, and now I'm talking to the surgeon, and he says, well, we have about a 91% success rate here. We have a quick turnaround. And the last thing he said was, I can assure you I'll be seeing you real soon. I said, okay, doc, I'll see you then. So 11 days later, Juan, it's noon on, I think it was a Friday, the surgery, the call was. It's high noon. I just checked my blood sugar. It's over 500.
Damn.
I'm not feeling good. My blood pressure, my aide checked it before she left out for the day. It was over 200. Wow. So I'm sitting in the living room. My head is in my hands, and I'm like fed up. Like, I'm sick of this. Something needs to happen. And my mom is sitting down there with me. So back then they had, seen the caller ID that comes on the TV?
Yeah.
So my mom had that enabled, so she looks up and she says, Georgetown's calling. And so she answers the phone and she tells me it's the transplant clinic. So I answer the phone, put it on speaker, and I say, Mr. Armstead, I'm pleased to inform you I have an organ offer. It says from a 25-year-old, the organs are great. You at the top of our list, do you accept? I said, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have a permanently broken ankle, so I can't run like that on. But when I get off that phone, I couldn't move fast enough.
I hear you, man.
I ran down that hallway up to my room. I got myself dressed and was ready to go. My mom's like, okay, who are we gonna call to get us up there? I'm like, Mom, we ain't gonna call nobody. We're gonna get a cab. I don't care. And I don't like cabs, Mom. I was trying to get up to that hospital, so.
Right.
We get a cab. We get up to the hospital. They already waiting on me. So, unlike Andrew at the time, I was cut off from Facebook when I lost my sight. Because again, I had a BlackBerry Earth back in 2011. I had 2 of them on. I couldn't use them.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know they talked. So, only thing I could do was make calls. So I couldn't document any of this. I wish I could have that technology then.
Yeah.
So it's me and my mom. We're up in the room, and I'm just waiting. And I'm so nervous, I can't sleep. I was literally up all night long. So the following day is transplant day. It's about 6 a.m. They come for me. They say, okay, Mr. Armstead, the organs are here. We're going to take you downstairs, and we're going to get you those organs. So. And then, I'm sitting there like, okay, this is all make believe, right? This is a joke. This can't be real. This can't be real. They wheeled me down the hallway. I'm gonna wake up. I know I'm gonna wake up. This can't be happening. This is all a pipe dream. Now I'm in surgical waiting. And I'm down there, and all around me, Juan, I'm hearing, congratulations, you're getting your liver today. Like, everybody in there was getting organs that day.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, this isn't make-believe. This is actually gonna happen.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had to relieve myself, so they get me to the bathroom, because I needed this a long time. So I'm in there, and I said a prayer. I said, God, well, thank you for these organs. This is a dire procedure, but hopefully I'll get out of here and see everybody on the other side. So
right.
I come out, they put me back on the bed, the team gathers around me, they pray, they wheel me into the operating room, and I mean, it's cold in there, Juan, and I don't know if you ever had surgery, but those lights were so bright, I can't help but see them.
Right.
And you got monitors beeping and doctors buzzing all around. And I actually heard one of them say, the organs are over there in the cooler.
Oh, wow.
I so wanted to turn my head and look towards that cooler, but I couldn't. And they put the oxygen on. And the last thing I remember was they said, okay, Mr. Armstead, we're about to get this miracle underway. You can start, relax and count back from 100. At this point, tears started rolling down the sides of my face, and I was out.
Right.
I was out.
Wow.
So when I woke up, it had to be the next day, because my surgery, I was told, was 10 hours long. Because it was complicated. Well, when they first opened me up, Juan, they saw that my appendix was impacted.
Oh, wow. So
they had to take that out first.
Right.
And once they got the appendix out, they did their little hookups and connections and all of that stuff, and my blood sugar came down nicely. And so now I'm waking up in recovery, and I felt stuffed. I'm like, what the heck did they do to me in there? Because like Andrew said, you feel like a stuffed turkey, and my arms were tied to the bed because they was afraid I was gonna pull my tubes out.
Right.
And they set me up for an x-ray. And they said, this x-ray doesn't look good. And I'm told they have to take me back in the OR because now I'm bleeding. So they take me back in the OR. That's a couple of hours. And when I came to, I'm in the intensive care unit. I got tubes, wires all over the place.
Wow.
And it's different from what Andrew did because, see, Andrew was able to get up and move around like the Energizer Bunny things after his surgery. Me, not so much, because my blood pressure was now too low.
Yeah.
I can get out of bed, I have to sit down immediately. I'm like, I can't go for more. My blood pressure one was like in the 70s.
Wow.
I can't walk with that. And so because they want me to get up, but I can't get up. I'm in bed. Now I'm developing clots in my lungs.
Oh, shit.
And now they got me on blood thinners. They had me on tents, oxygen tents. I even had an infection on my arm.
Wow.
A bacterial infection. So it was really complicated, bro. Now, typically, most patients are out within 2 weeks. My total hospital stay, because I actually had a stint where I came home for 5 days and then had to go back. But my total time in the hospital, Juan, 72 days.
Wow.
72 days. So.
And that was after the kidney transplant and pancreas transplant also?
Yeah, this was the day of the transplant was like the first full day in the hospital. That was August 16th.
Wow.
I didn't come home for good until Halloween that year.
Wow. Damn.
And my brother, who had his in Chicago, I beat him by 1 day. So he was out there for 71 days. And it was just weird. I weighed 150 before transplant. I weighed 124 when I came home. So I couldn't eat anything. I had problems going to the bathroom. Stomach it was awful, Juan. It was awful.
I could imagine, man.
And came home, I was on a walker. I was pushed around in wheelchairs. It took me about 2 months to get my strength back, but I was gaining weight fast because now I'm at home. I'm like, okay, Mom, I got a pancreas down, so you can give me all the pound cake I can handle. And I was eating it, Juan. So by January, I went from 124 to 157. By March, I was up to 165.
Right.
So I was eating. I was plugging away.
Right.
And all was seeming well until 2016. Going to a doctor for my stomach, and they gave me erythromycin.
What's that?
And it's an antibiotic.
Oh, okay.
And the doctor said, this may affect how your immunosuppressant drugs work. I'm like, okay. He says, it may raise it a little bit. I'm like, okay. He says, so we'll keep a watch on it. Within 5 days, I was in the hospital, and my tacrolimus levels was 7 times what it should have been.
What the heck?
In 5 days.
Wow.
And they said, sir, if you didn't come in today, you probably would have died.
Wow.
So now they're running IV fluids nonstop for days. It took me back to when I first got my transplant because, you're blind, and I don't know if Andrew went through this. But again, I want to know that it actually happened. All I know is I had a 10 to 12 inch scar down my torso. Like, I don't have any proof.
Right.
Other than they checking my blood sugars and they're like, okay, they're in the 80s, they're in the 90s. Okay, I'm like, that's perfect. What about my kidney? Well, they said because they put in a catheter to monitor your urine output, and I wasn't putting out very much. So they came to me and they said, Mr. Armstead, well, you probably don't want to hear this, but we want to dialyze you one more time. I said, you want to do what? Yeah, we want to dialyze you. Well, why do you want to do that? Didn't you just give me a kidney? Well, we think if we dialyze you one more time, maybe your kidney will wake up. I agreed to this one. So one more time, they hooked me up to the machine while I'm in the ICU. And I'm glad that was my last time. So, because I started taking out urine then. I still, was kind of like, okay, you telling me I'm putting out urine, but how do I know this?
Right.
How do I know this? So they take me up to the floor, and they take the catheter out, which is painful, by the way. If you ever had a Foley, them things hurt, bro. Going in and coming out.
Mr. Winky right now is hiding. Just
yeah. He wasn't winking too much. He had a black eye after that.
Right.
So they take the catheter out, and I remember my mom and my aunt came to see me that day. And I tell them, I think the time has come for me to pee. So they step out, and the urinals they give you, that's about 32 ounces.
Yeah.
So now I didn't fill it up like my brother Andrew did, but I put out about a good 20 ounces, and when I heard it going in there, I'm like, oh my God, I'm peeing again. Dude, I almost dropped the daggone thing because I was so excited.
That would have been a mess.
Put it up on the table, and my mom said the funniest thing. She came in the room, and she said, oh my God, look at the pretty pee-pee. I'm like, Mom, really? She's like, it's a beautiful golden. I'm like, Mom, really?
Yeah.
But for that moment, it was like, big burden off my shoulders, big challenge overcome, like no more dialysis now.
Right.
And dialysis, dude, it drains the life out of you. It takes away your life because you don't have the freedom to go where you want when you want to, because you have to plan your life around every treatment.
Right.
Like today, if I was still on it, it would be my off day. So I'd have to get up tomorrow, 6 a.m. Wouldn't be done till about 11:30, and would be too weak to do anything else.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of you. Yep.
Yeah, it does. And then not including, if you ever saw the dialysis needles, dude, I don't think Andrew told you this, but if you ever wanted to know how big they are, think of a stick, a lollipop stick. That's how big they are. Like, most needles, like an insulin needle, are like 29, 30 gauge. Really small. Dialysis needles, dude, are like 14, 15.
Wow.
They're that big. And as Andrew said, they have to create an access in your arm called an AV fistula, where they take a vein, in my case, deep in your arm. They have to thread it under your skin and connect it to an artery. And it creates a super vein, and this thing grows.
Wow.
The more you use it, it grows. And right now, if you were to put your hand on my arm, you could feel it. And it runs from my elbow all the way up to my armpit.
Wow.
It's that big. And
that's on your bicep, or is that like on the inner part of your arm?
It's on the inside part of your arm. Now, some people who have AV fistulas, and they also have grafts, but an AV fistula is your own artery and vein, and they're typically on the inner half of either your forearm or your upper arm. Some people actually have it in their thigh, but I don't want nobody sticking a big needle in my thigh. No.
Wow.
And even to have that surgery, I had like 5 surgeries to build them, and they weren't growing. They weren't developing. So I have 2 scars, one on either side of my wrist. I have 2 more on either side of my elbow, and then I have 1 long scar from my elbow up to my armpit, where they literally had to go in the deepest part of my arm and dig this big vein out called a basilic vein and tunnel it under my skin, and then, as I said, connect it to your artery, and it grows to where they can put these big old needles in there, 2 of them. They just pull your blood out and they put it back.
Right. Wow. All right, my brother. So thanks, man, for like sharing that part of your story about your life. Now, my other question is, for you now that you receive your kidney and pancreas transplant, and I know you're a fighter and you've been fighting all your life, but do you feel more now than ever that to keep on striving forward, to keep on living, and to even do more to take care of those kidney and pancreas? And do you feel like what you've received from this person who's donated their kidney and pancreas, do you feel like it's, how do you say, damn, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Obligated, perhaps?
No, not
is that the word?
No, not obligated. Well, obligated, yes, too, but obligated to like you owe it to that person in a way to make better of your life, not to be like always constantly down or like depressed, because I don't really know if you're getting depressed, and stuff like that, but do you feel like you're obligated in a way to move forward in life and to keep succeeding and doing what you do, Well,
bro, I would say it like this. As I told you, when I became blind, and dialysis and battling diabetes, it took the wind out of my sails.
Right.
It's like, okay, I was never one to like wake up grumpy or with an attitude, because it gets you nowhere.
Exactly.
So, but I'm like, okay, what's the purpose of me trying to push others to be the best, or even myself, when it was like bad things were snowballing and hitting me left and right.
Right.
So when I sat and I think, okay, here I am. I was 36 years old at the time of my transplant. I just celebrated my 43rd birthday a week ago.
Right.
So here I am. I got 2 organs I didn't think I was going to get. Mm-hmm. When I thought at the time they were imminent death sentences.
Right.
As Andrew said, I did come up with 2 sayings. Diabetes was die or beat this.
Right.
And dialysis, die, I'll assist. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I'm not dying. You're not going to kill me.
Exactly.
So when I think about, because my donor was 25 years old. Mm-hmm. That's all I know about them. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if they died because of a car accident or an illness or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I was given a second chance, kind of like an extended play, so I'm allowed to run more laps. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where this 25-year-old person who I already outlived by 11 years no longer has that opportunity. So I feel obligated and responsible for paying it forward.
Exactly.
And to living my life to the point where they're looking down and saying, okay, this person who received my kidney and pancreas is not living his life in vain.
Right.
So how do you do that, Victor? Well, how do you show this to other people? Well, when I returned to Facebook in 2015, mm-hmm. I kind of changed my approach. Now, I was on Facebook, I joined Facebook in 2007. Mm-hmm. And back then, I was one to write a lot of romantic stuff. I was one to write about my job, my family, sports, that kind of thing.
Right.
Now, when I write on Facebook, over 90% of what I write is motivational, inspiring, encouraging, or something really profound that makes people think. And I gain positivity and the drive to do more for myself when I see that the things I say and do positively affects other people.
Right.
That's where, in the support group where I met Andrew, and you heard that story, and being able to be at the right place at the right time to catch that moment and say, dude, I got information you need to know. You need to go and get this pancreas. And Andrew was like, what are you talking about, dude? They didn't tell me about a pancreas. What do you know? Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And Andrew and I talked for hours, days at a time about this. Mm-hmm. And we launched a movement in 2019. We actually collabed on a page called Insightful Courage.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I did a broadcast in the support group that we're in. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying in that broadcast, by the end of the year, Andrew is going to have that transplant. Mm-hmm. I was so adamant about that one. So adamant. It was something I truly believed because I wanted that for Andrew. Right. He deserved that. Mm-hmm. And so when he got that call that he was going to the hospital, I think I was one of the first people he called. Mm-hmm. I was happy for the brother. I was happy for him.
Right.
And I went on Facebook and letting people know. And to me, it wasn't, I never went around saying, yeah, I did it. I'm not that kind of guy. God gets the glory out of that. I just happen to be the vessel that God used.
Exactly.
But that's one of the biggest things I can say. Well, I did pay it forward.
Yeah.
I helped a guy who I didn't know save his life to get him the life that he now enjoys.
Right.
So, when I hear him saying that he's fixing cars, something he does as a passion and a way to make a living, and he's able to be a husband to his wife and a father to his son and a friend and an inspiration to those who he knows, that means a lot to me, Juan. It does. Yeah, because it drives me to keep doing the work that I'm doing, and it lets me know that what I'm doing isn't in vain.
Right.
As a matter of fact, that's how I met you, was through Andrew.
Right.
And then we grew close, and now we're best friends and brothers, and
right, exactly.
And just reaching across the spectrum. And when people heard about Andrew and my story and how we it just inspires people. It really does. And even when Andrew had his surgery, 4 days later, what happens? I get sick. I end up in a hospital.
Right, I remember.
I'm like, what is it now? Well, Mr. Arm said, it looks like you had pancreatitis and you have an impacted intestine. What? Excuse me? Well, which pancreas is affected? Y'all not... One? Tell you, dude. The fact that I'm sitting there in the emergency room, I have a nasogastric tube in place. That's a tube that they run up your nose, down your throat, into your stomach. Okay? That's pumping fluid out. And then you're vomiting on top of that, bro.
Wow.
I had that much fluid in my system, and it wowed the doctors. And they're like, because actually the fluid was red and green, and they're like, we're gonna keep you, dude. So a couple of days later, they take me to the operating room. And I'm like, okay, so now I gotta recuperate from abdominal surgery myself, because they had to reopen my transplant scar. So now I'm in the hospital having to recuperate myself while trying to hold it together and be strong for Andrew, who's over 1,000 miles away recuperating from his transplant surgery, when my birthday was 3 days away. Right. I'm like, okay, Victor, we gotta keep it together. And Andrew actually beat me out the hospital. I'm like, huh? Like, okay, Andrew got out in 21 days. And that hospital stay, thank God, was my last one, was 25 days. And coming out of that and realizing again that, okay, it's not going to be smooth sailing. There's still going to be challenges ahead. Whether you see them coming or not, you got to be ready to fight. You got to be on the positive side and have that approach. So I just can't think, like, oh God, what next? What's the worst thing? No, I can't have that mindset. I can't. And so I just have to keep plugging and then motivating and inspiring people, because again, if I can reach somebody and get them to a better place, whether it's physically, spiritually, however it is, I know I'm doing the work I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And so when I have that, I know I'm not letting myself down. I'm not letting my donor down and their family or anyone else who's watching.
Right. And now, okay, so now my next question, because I know, just like myself, I try my best to motivate and do positivity and, push people. But there's also, the question I'm going to ask you, it also happens with me too. So if you answer it whichever way you answer it, just to let you know, it also happens with me, where the positivity and the motivation that you share and your ideas, how you do on your broadcast on Facebook and stuff like that, and you tell these people how you feel or try to motivate them to get through with what they're going through, like I do. Do you sometimes tell yourself, wow, I'm sharing these ideas, I'm motivating these people, but there's a point in my life where do I take my own advice? You know what I'm saying? So like when you feel down or depressed, from whatever the case may be, because I know I go through it too, but like, do you also take your own advice? Because I know it happens with me, but do you also take that? You'll be like, okay, I'm motivating this person, motivating that person, but there's a point you know what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying, and it does happen. It does happen to me a lot. Right. Even, because I've been doing the whole public speaking thing for a long time, and unfortunately, I don't have those recordings, but I do remember the time it was, the place, the things I said, and how those things affect me. You know, if I wanted to share my story to someone who I barely know,
right?
And you know how tough that can be, because it's like, okay, how do I open up to this person?
Yeah,
how can I relate to them in a way where they understand where I'm coming from and that they know I know what they're going through.
Right.
So I did a broadcast one day and I talked about don't be afraid to show your scars.
Right.
Because we all have them. Whether it's physical, mental, otherwise, we all have them. And so when I'm meeting someone new and I'm trying to connect with them, I'm like, okay, go back and listen to that.
Right.
You can't be afraid to tell people your story, because as motivators and people who inspire, how can you do that if you don't have an example or a story to tell them to get them to see where you're coming from?
Or been through that experience.
Exactly. It's like, I go back to me and Andrew. How can I tell or give Andrew that knowledge about why it was important for him to get the pancreas?
Right.
Unless I went through it.
Right.
You know, so any question he could possibly ask, I was in the perfect position to answer it, even better than a doctor, because, yeah, doctors are book smart. Yeah, doctors are the ones doing these procedures, but we're the ones going through it. You know, and even the beautiful thing, even though I hated having to go through surgery and recover while Andrew was doing it, it was a spiritual sense. Okay, bro, you're not by yourself. I'm right here with you. Everything you're experiencing, bro, I've been there.
Right.
You know, I know what it's like, like I said, the whole feeling like you've been stuffed, or when you stand up and your blood pressure's low, or I've been through that. So I was able to connect with Andrew on such a powerful level that way, or even other people in our community who may grapple with retinopathy or diabetic complications like neuropathy and losing their teeth. Like, there's so many things that I've experienced in my 43 years that I can use and pretty much relate to just about anybody.
Right. So basically,
it's just a matter of finding that appropriate avenue.
Right. So basically, the advice that you're giving is because you experience it and you've lived it, and you're also taking the extra advice because you're helping not only them, but you're helping yourself through them while giving that advice. So you're basically taking your own advice. You know what I'm saying? Right. So,
I'm taking my own advice in addition to
help you.
Advice I get from my closest friends, because there's a select few that I go to, including yourself.
Right.
You know, I ask, what's going on? How do you do this? And it's like forming a strand, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I asked you that question, is because there are people out there that they talk, but they don't take their own stuff. You know what I'm saying? They don't take, they don't implement it into their own life. You know, and that's why I asked that question. Like, I'll be asking questions like that to everybody. It's not going to only be you. So, so that's why I wanted to, let the people know. And,
yeah, because one area that I do it well in is I love talking about relationships, and so. I'm not going to be one to give advice about a relationship, or even a situation, and not apply it to my own.
Exactly.
I wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
Because if I say, for example, guys, don't cheat on your women, what kind of guy would I be? What kind of example would I be if I'm telling guys don't cheat, and yet I'm out doing that very thing? It makes no sense if it lacks the logic. So
yeah, it makes you. It makes you like. What's that word I'm looking for? Well, probably like two-faced in a way, I think, maybe.
Yeah, hypocrite.
Yeah, that, yep. But yeah, okay, so my next question, because we're about almost an hour in, so my next question is, my brother, the people don't know, so you're in a relationship, and let's talk about that young lady.
Why? Dude, I could talk forever about this young woman,
that
God has blessed me with, man. I've known her for about 2 years. Actually, when we met, I was dating someone else, but she had a crush on me, bro. Yeah. I didn't know it though.
Right.
But she sent me a friend request because she liked the things I was writing and saying. You know, not just romantically, but the inspiring and encouraging things. So,
right.
I tried to befriend her, you know, and she was like, "Don't you have a girlfriend? Like, leave me alone. Go away. Get lost." and she was hard as nails to crack. Right. She was. But last year, I think she was going through some things herself, and ironically, I was one of the first people she reached out to. And I just gave her that genuine friendliness and compassion that I give to my friends. And the relationship I was in, she dumped me. Thank God she did. Best thing she ever did for me.
Yeah, I remember when you sent me a voice clip.
So her name is Evelyn, for those who don't know, but who knows Evelyn or knows me and don't know that we're engaged to each other.
Right, and she'll be here soon too.
Yeah, so it's one of the biggest stories in the BVIP community. I wouldn't even have the presence that I have in the community had it not been for her. She has a group on WhatsApp called Coffee Drinking Talkies. I go on there, and then because I also want to be a radio personality, by the way.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna get you worked on that too.
And his attitude, and I love bantering and joking around with people and just making them laugh. And
right.
Dude, she's a breath of fresh air, probably one of the biggest blessings I have going for me right now. And I'll say this, dude, I hate the fact that I'm blind. I absolutely hate it. But one thing I tell people is this. It's not a curse. It's actually a blessing, because I wouldn't have best friends like you or your lady, Diva Deb.
Right.
Another best friend, or Trisha, or Andrew, or even Evelyn. I wouldn't know any of you probably if I wasn't blind.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and again, that goes back to reaching for the positive things, even though being blind is probably one of the worst things anybody would ever want to have happen to them. And, you know, even when I look at Evelyn, you know, she was born blind, and it's like, damn, you know, like, I can't imagine going through that pain. But the uniqueness in our relationship is that she brings a skill set and a knowledge and experience I'll never have. And me being sighted for the first 33, I have a skill set and a knowledge and experience that she has yet to experience, because I believe one day she will see. So it blends into this awesome love affair. We're madly in love, and hopefully very soon we'll be married. And I tell you, dude, the more I think about her, the more my heart just wants to beat out of my chest. You know how I feel about her.
I know.
It's just the same as you do about your Diva Dead, man. We could go from now till the end of the year, far beyond talking about our women.
Right? Shoot, I don't even. We're already about an hour in. I don't have that much gigs on my phone. We'll be here talking about them for like prior until the next day.
I know, right?
Right.
But my life wouldn't be where it is or what it is without her. So I thank God and the skies above for blessing me with her. I thank my mom for, you know, opening up the home and her heart and allowing her to come here and be with us and allow our relationship to grow and to thrive. Because if my mom didn't play the role that she did, well, it would just mean a long distance relationship.
Right, exactly.
I've had my fair share of those, and I don't want any more. So
exactly.
And then she made the sacrifice of saying, "Okay, I'll come to you." So she basically picked up her life, dude, and said, "I'll start a new one with you." So all right, my brother. So hold on, let me see where we at on time. 1 hour and 4 minutes, my brother. Hold on, let me find the stop button. All right. So
I'm gonna end this broadcast, my brother. Thank you, like, for being here, telling your story. You know, I'm happy that you did that, to share your story in your life. And I'm also happy that you're here and you talk about everything you needed to talk about to, you know, let everybody know. The other thing is, God bless you, your future wife, your mama queen. And there's anything else you would like to say before I end this broadcast, my brother?
Most definitely, Juan. First, I want to thank you and Diva Deb for inviting me here to come on my RP Life. I had a blast. I hope that sharing my story will motivate, encourage, and inspire your followers. I want to say to both my Mama Queen and to my champette, as I call her affectionately, I love you guys. You guys are absolutely awesome, and I thank God for both of you. And I would encourage anyone under the sound of my voice to please subscribe to my RP Life. You know, follow this dude on Twitter, follow him on YouTube, join this group on Facebook. Just hit the dude up, because I'm telling you, you're gonna connect with a lot of awesome people globally, and it's an experience you don't want to miss. So connect with this dude, one of the smartest moves I ever made.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate your love and support for me, and you know, being by my side also, my brother. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my RP Life. I'm your host, and that was my brother, aka the champ, Victor, the victorious. And don't forget to subscribe to my RP Life. Follow me on Twitter. Join my Facebook group page, my RP Life family and friends. I'm the admin there, and my beautiful Diva Deb is also the main admin. Like I always say, she's the one who runs the group. And yeah, so if you're listening to both of our voices, please subscribe and check out my brother's was it Coffee Drinking Talkies, right?
Yeah, you can find me on WhatsApp, Messenger, and Facebook under the group Coffee Drinking Talkies. I also have a group called We Care to Share,
right,
as well. And you can also find me on the Facebook pages Insightful Courage and Straight from B.A. Hart. So
exactly.
Check those out.
Exactly. Check my brother out, you know, and you can also join the groups and stuff like that. So God bless everyone. Peace out. My name is Juan.